Slide 107, Lesson 6, the Vav Relative, or the Vav Consecutive. Strangely, in biblical Hebrew, if we write the letter Vav for and at the beginning of a verb, it will change from past to future. This property of the Vav is called the Vav Consecutive, or Vav Relative. This is why the Carl Perfect is called a perfect and not just a past tense verb. It is usually a past tense verb, but when a Vav, meaning and, or sometimes but, is added, the verb becomes a future tense verb. So, what we saw in the Carl Perfect stems, the singular and plurals that we saw in the table, when we put the Vav in front of those verbs, they change the past tense into a future tense. This may seem quite illogical to a Western-minded person, but it has deep meaning in the Word of God, and we will look at this shortly. For now, let's see a few examples. This sentence here, Amar Paro, Pharaoh said, Amar Paro, Pharaoh, Paro, said Pharaoh, is the past tense. Amar means he said. Amar, he said. Now if we add an and, a vav, to the beginning of this sentence, Amar Paro, said Pharaoh, becomes Va Amar Paro. Va Amar Paro. And Pharaoh will say. And Pharaoh will say. So the Vav means and Amar, which means he said, becomes he will say. So this becomes and Pharaoh will say. So the Vav is changing the past tense verb into a future tense verb. Another example, Avdu, Avdu. Eved means servant, Avad means he served, and Avdu means they served. They served. So that's past tense. And when we add the Vav, the future tense word is formed. So Avdu means they served, but Va Avdu means and they will serve. And they will serve. So Avdu becomes Va Avdu. They served becomes and they shall serve. So this is this shall, this will here. This shall means future. It's in they will do it. They shall do it. So it's moved into the future. This is a very, very, very strange thing. And it's telling us a lot about the nature of time itself. So let's look into that now. Slide 108, Lesson 6, Yeshua is beyond time. In the book of Revelation we read, Yeshua says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord. Now, Alpha and Omega is the first and last letter of the Greek alphabet, which is, in Hebrew, the first and last letter is the Aleph and the Tav. So Yeshua is the word from beginning to end, from the first letter of the alphabet to the last. He's the Aleph Tav. Which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. Revelation 1:8. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. So this which is, and which was, and which is to come, is the present, the past, and the future, which is, that's the present, which was, that's the past, and which is to come, that's the future. So Yeshua, the Aleph Tav, the Alpha and Omega, is related to being the present, the past, and the future. And they are all one with God. Slide 109, Lesson 6, Yahweh's timeless name, YHVH. Now, in the previous slide, we saw that Yeshua was, he is, he will be. So, in Hebrew, in English, that's past, present, and future. And in Hebrew, that's Hayah, he was. This is the word for he was in Hebrew, Hayah. Hoveh, he is, or Hoveh, if you're using the older pronunciation of the Vav. Hoveh, and he will be, Yehyeh. So he was, he is, he will be. Hayah, Hoveh, Yehyeh. So this is very interesting, because all of these letters are in the name Yahweh. They all have a yod. They have a yod here and in here. In the word Hayah, there's a yod, and in the word Yehyeh, there's a yod. So in the past and the future, there's a yod. We have that here. And there's a hay in all of these past, present, and future words in Hebrew. Hayah, Hoveh, Yehyeh. So we have two hays in Yahweh's name. And the middle one here, the present, has a Vav in it, Hoveh. And we have that in Yahweh's name, Yod Hey, Vav Hey. So, Yahweh's name reflects all of these aspects of God. The past, Hayah, the present, Hoveh, and the future, Yehyeh. So Yahweh's name means the eternal. He's outside of time. He's all of it. He's everything. So he was, he is, he will be, is reflected in the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yahweh. So the name Yahweh, which is often translated as Jehovah or Lord, this is the word usually translated Lord in the Old Testament in the King James, for example, and other translations. This name, Yahweh, reflects God's timeless, eternal nature. He was, and he is, and he will be the eternal Lord. Hayah, Hoveh, Yehyeh, Yahweh. So he's the eternal Lord, or time Lord, or Lord of history, past, present, and future. This is why Yahweh sees things to come, because he's outside of time completely, and it's all one with him. So Yeshua shares in that divine nature of his Father, being outside of time himself. Slide 110, Lesson 6, Eternity. So we see that God is outside of time. He was, he is, he will be. That's God the Father, and his Son also shares in that quality, because he is the Alpha and Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, who was, who is, and who will be. So, if God is outside of time, then it stands to reason that his view of history would be very different from ours. In fact, he would be able to not only see the end from the beginning, he would be able to turn to any page, because God is the author of the book, but we are in the book. God is outside the book, and he can turn to any page. After all, the world was made by his word. In Genesis 1 we read, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word. So, the Word is outside of time. The Aleph and the Tav, the Alpha and Omega, he was, he is, he will be. So, Yeshua and the Father are outside of time, and Yeshua is the writer of the book. But he can turn to any page. We are like the words on the page, but God, the author, can turn to any page of history. And he can take his servants, the Bible prophets, and show them things in the future, because he can turn to any page. He's outside of his creation, and he's outside of linear time, as we know it. So we can begin to see that what the Vav is all about. The Vav consecutive shows us Yahweh's timelessness, both the Father and the Son, because the Vav changes the past into the future when added to a verb. So the last few slides have been a way to show you spiritually what the word, even the grammar, the Hebrew grammar is telling us about God. We view things in a sequence. Time starts at the past and it moves on to completion in the future. But it's all complete with God. It's already been spoken into existence, and it's just filtering down to us, and we're walking through the pages of the book. But the book has already been written. It's already been created. It's been said. It's been told. It's been spoken into existence. So the Vav, when we add it to a verb, it changes the time side of things. The Vav is like the fulcrum, or the pivot on which the past changes into the future, and later we'll see the future it changes into the past with the Vav also. Remember, Yahweh was, he was, Hayah, he is, Hoveh, and he will be, Yehyeh, all reflected in his name Yahweh. But the middle pivot is he is, and that's Hoveh, and Hoveh contains the Vav that pivots the past into the future and the future into the past.